Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com.
I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Nashville. This weekend, the public face of one of Nashville's cherished cultural institutions is saying farewell. Giancarlo Guerrero has been music director of the Nashville Symphony for 16 seasons, and boy, has he seen the NSO through a lot. He was there with the orchestra when its hall suffered catastrophic flooding in 2010, and then when it looked like they might lose the building altogether, but also for incredible moments of music making, of building the orchestra's national reputation, winning multiple Grammy Awards, and welcoming an increasingly strong roster of guest artists to play with them at the Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Through that time, Maestro Guerrero has championed the works of prominent American composers and dug deep into the catalogs of the greats from past generations. And this weekend, that chapter comes to a close with a performance of Mahler's colossal Symphony of 1,000. That will include 8 vocal soloists, a youth treble choir, an oversized orchestra, a multitude of percussion. It will no doubt be a fitting finale, and we have come to Schermerhorn Symphony Center to talk to Maestro Guerrero. If you hear some music going on in the background, some singing, that is preparation for the big show. Giancarlo Guerrero, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Let's start with your beginnings at the Nashville Symphony Orchestra. I mean, before you got here, the orchestra went through a really unexpected chapter. The longtime director, Kenneth Schermerhorn, died unexpectedly just as the ensemble was getting to move into this beautiful building. And for those who don't know, Leonard Slatkin, who is a very big deal in the world of American conductors, stepped in to help the Nashville Symphony and led the search that ended up hiring you. So why did you decide to apply for this job?
As you mentioned, the passing of Maestro Schermerhorn was somewhat of a shock. And it happened suddenly, even though he had been sick. And it's one of those things, being in the right place at the right time. I was scheduled to come and guest conduct the orchestra. At a time before the orchestra moved into the Schermerhorn Symphony Center, the orchestra really didn't have many guest conductors. Maestro Kenneth Schermerhorn took care of pretty much the entire season. Of course, when they were moving into the new hall, they were expecting to increase the season and, bring more guest conductors. But for me, honestly, I thought it was going to be a one-off. I would have come in, guest conducted, and that would have been the end of it. And as it happened, the weekend before I arrived, Maestro Schermerhorn passed away.
Oh, wow.
And so my concerts became kind of memorial service for him. On the day of the first rehearsal, Alan Valentine, our CEO, actually had to come on stage with the players and kind of confirm that the maestro had passed away kind of suddenly. As I said, he was ill, but apparently he took a turn for the worst, and very suddenly he died quite rapidly. So not only the musicians, but the whole community was kind of in shock.
Yes.
So my concert kind of took a different, feeling to it, and I was happy to be here and kind of lead the orchestra through this moment of mourning. We slightly changed the program to begin to honor, of course, Maestro Schermerhorn,
yes.
which also means I never got to meet him in person. Even though anywhere I look, I see his legacy. And this happened in May, which is the end of the season. So the next season, which was the last season at TPAC before moving into the Schermerhorn, this was going to be the 2005-2006 season, was already put together with Maestro Schermerhorn taking care of pretty much all the concerts and all the programs and all the soloists. So the orchestra was kind of thrusted into this music director search, no conductor, last season before moving into the new hall. And my week, I guess, went well enough that, Alan Valentine looked at me and said, when are you available next season? And I was happy to say, listen, I had a pretty busy schedule myself, but as it happened, I was available for the opening night and the closing, which was the last concert before they moved to the Schermerhorn. And the deal was, whatever you choose, you have to keep the repertoire exactly the same, because they had announced that they were selling, subscriptions.
Right.
And of course, I was happy to do it. Maestro Schermerhorn chose a great season. So that's how it happened. I ended up coming back as a guest conductor. Of course, they were moving into the new hall. And I have to give credit to Alan Valentine for having the forethought of appointing Maestro Leonard Slatkin to be the artistic advisor while they were moving. I think it would have been way too much overkill to do the opening of the hall and doing a music director search.
Yes.
So by having Maestro Slatkin kind of watching the shop and doing auditions and kind of keeping things together, the orchestra was able to move into the hall and champion and do all the celebrations, involved with it, while at the same time kind of quietly bringing guest conductors like myself and kind of, having, as I like to call the, beauty pageant, to see which ones may have the click. And so in this 2-3 year period, I actually came to the orchestra maybe 6 or 7 times, which is quite unusual. I mean, it was a pretty good search in terms that they got to see me under many different lights. And in the end, when they offered me the position and, coming to open this beautiful new concert hall, it was just too attractive. But in the beginning, the thing that really hit me was the fact that I really connected with the players from the very beginning. I felt this was not only already a fabulous orchestra, Maestro Skemmerhorn had done a great job building a great orchestra, but of course, once they moved into the new hall, it was a different ballgame. So I was very glad that, I came in and, they offered me the position, and this became home for me and my family. And, my kids grew up here, and now Nashville has kind of served its purpose, and now time to move on to the next project.
Well, that lengthy experience, and it's specifically coming in and doing that almost memorial concert, that must have given you a very different understanding than maybe you otherwise would have had about what legacy you were coming into, what orchestra you were becoming a part of. How was it taking on and saying, now I'm the music director, now I'm the conductor here?
Well, as I said, moving into a new hall, the orchestra was kind of already put in the map, not only nationwide, but internationally. The fact that this hall became one of the most celebrated concert halls in the world, and that the Nashville Symphony and Nashville itself had been basically so generous, the people here, this community, to build this hall, because it really took the greatest generosity of everybody around here, big and small, to make this happen. And the realization that not only was the Nashville Symphony vital to the city of Nashville, but more importantly, that this city deserved to have not only a world-class orchestra, but a world-class concert hall. The fact that during the week that my concerts took place, my initial week when we had those memorial concerts for Maestro Skemmerhorn, I got to meet quite a lot of people from the community, and I got to hear a lot of stories about the maestro, and somebody that I only knew the name. Honestly, I never came across him. And it was obvious to me that all of this was kind of his vision. So for me, coming in was almost like picking up, literally, pardon the pun, the baton, and continuing with what he wanted to do in terms of not only American music, but also continuing to build, a great world-class orchestra in a city that proudly calls itself Music City. So all of these things to me were very apparent from the very beginning. And I do think that I would have definitely had a wonderful friendship with the maestro. Everything that I know, I think we were very much have the same musical taste in many ways. And I would have loved to talk music with him and talk composers. Because I know that that's one of the things that as musicians we enjoy when we get to talk to colleagues, because as conductors we're always on the road, so getting 2 conductors in one room is kind of an accident of the universe. So all of these things to me were not only an establishment of myself as new music director with my own ideas and vision, but at the same time recognizing what had brought the Nashville Symphony this far. And a big part of that was not only the community, but of course Maestro Kenneth Skemmerhorn. So
you mentioned the impression that the musicians had made on you. What was it like building that working relationship with them? What really stood out to you about this ensemble?
Well, the fact that we moved into a new hall, there was a great high spirit, from everyone, not only in the orchestra, but the whole institution. I mean, this achievement, this incredible, wonderful achievement. So basically, we were starting with a blank slate, that moving into the new hall meant that we could really shape the Nashville Symphony into something unique that was going to service the city of Nashville. And because of that, there was a great degree of very good vibrations, both to me, the musicians, and musicians to me, and lots of discussion about what we wanted to do, what we wanted to perform, how we wanted to perform it, even the discussion of where do we place the orchestra, how do we accommodate it? I mean, coming into this new place, and the fact that, okay, guys, let's be a little bit flexible, not one size fits all. If we put the violins here and we put the cellos here, but maybe switch things around. So, and the fact that we had, hydraulic lifts, we were playing with a very nice, beautiful, expensive toy. And trust me, we were taking it for a spin. And those first several years were absolutely incredible, not only artistically, but at the same time experimenting. Because of the fact that there was really no written rules or traditions, we were making them as we were going along. And as you can imagine, performing Beethoven under different light was something very exciting. It's not, we're going to play Beethoven the way they played in Vienna 100 years ago. No, we're going to play Beethoven in the 21st century in Nashville. What does that mean? And that required a lot of flexibility from all of us. And at the same time, getting to know these incredible players was something to me that was incredibly fun. Many of them are still around, which I am very proud of the fact that many still are, started with me and are still here. And it shows you that maybe before the whole Open, this could have been kind of like a jump place where people come in and then they jump to the bigger orchestra. After the whole Open and the fact that the orchestra became so incredibly virtuosic, this became a destination. So after that, I was so delighted to see the players that came here and made their home in Nashville, not only playing with the orchestra, but being a part of all of the musical activity that takes place here with the recordings, with the studios. And I think
tremendous number
of
of chamber ensembles started by your
all
players.
of that.
Yes.
I mean, all of the above. So as I said, there was a completely revitalization of what it meant to be a musician in Nashville. And one of the things that I am proudest of is that most of the musicians, I can only name 2 or 3 in my entire time that actually moved on to bigger orchestras. But the vast majority, they stayed here and they made Nashville their homes. And I think because of that, we all gained from it.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Nina Cardona. We're speaking with Nashville Symphony music director, Giancarlo Guerrero. Now, you started out as a percussionist. What made you want to make that switch to conducting?
Well, it was an accident. I took conducting as a mandatory class in college, which any music major will tell you is part of the deal. Just as you have to take music history and theory and counterpoint and composition and conducting. And honestly, I didn't care much for it. I was very happy in the back of the orchestra and making fun of conductors, honestly. But eventually, I couldn't.
Percussionists are good at that.
I had to face the music, I guess. And my junior year, I took the class, and I have all the videos, by the way, from all my classes. And looking at it, I could not have taken it less seriously. And basically, the class was you standing in front of your classmates. We were supposed to bring our instruments. And we would conduct, floor, window, ceiling, and conduct fast, slow, retardandos. I mean, all the basic stuff. Because, yes, at some point as a musician, you will have to conduct something. If you're a teacher, you will have to conduct some sort of ensemble. So I understand why we had to do this. But the thing is that I was not interested in it. But the best part of it is that at the end of the semester, the conducting teacher, who's somebody that I greatly, greatly admire to this day, one of my great colleagues, came to me and said, listen, I don't know if maybe because you have good rhythm as a percussionist, which for a conductor is imperative, and you're used to having a stick, you have a natural talent for this. I mean, looking at the videos, I didn't know what he was talking about, but then again, I trusted him. So kind of on the side, I started doing this as a hobby, kind of, doing conducting, learning scores on any free time that I had. I mean, I was not ready to give up my drums yet, but I was kind of, learning scores on the side. And as they say, little by little, the balance started tilting, and I ended up dropping a stick and moving to the front and became a conductor, I guess.
Now, one thing Nashvilleians may not realize is that you've also been a touring conductor through your years here. That's, as you said, that's what brought you here at first. You also became music director of another ensemble in Europe. What has it been like to balance your job here with your performing life in the broader world?
I'm very proud of the fact that for the vast majority of my time in Nashville, I was completely and fully dedicated to the orchestra. I do enjoy guest conducting a lot, and I do enjoy the traveling aspect of going to Australia and Europe and South America and all over the world, working with orchestras that now are very close to my heart and with whom I keep a long relationship. I have orchestras all over the world that I've been conducting for 25, 30 years, and I look forward to going back every year and working with them. But Nashville was always my home. As I said, my family was here. My kids were going to school here. So this was our base of operations. But eventually, once I felt that, we were kind of on a good groove with the orchestra and things were moving in a very good direction. And we kind of found the perfect way for me and the musicians and vice versa to make great music. One of those orchestras that I worked with in Europe, kind of like it happened here, it was a last-minute cancellation in Poland. Some conductor became sick and dropped out for an opening night. I was in Berlin. My manager called me and said, you want to take this over? I happen to know the repertoire. Get on a train from Berlin to Wrocław, Poland. I went there. It would have been a one-off, honestly. But I got there. They had just opened a new hall. Sound familiar? And the orchestra was absolutely fabulous. And they said, oh, by the way, we're looking for a music director. And it was just too attractive. The idea of having, another orchestra, a base of operation in Europe. By this time, my kids were older too. So that made it a little easier. So it was too attractive to say no. The opportunity to build something again in Europe, with another orchestra, a little far away from Nashville. But it was a wonderful time that I had with that ensemble. I stayed with them for about 8 years. Eventually, I gave it up just because COVID got in the way, the pandemic. And it took 3 planes for me to get there. So after a while, I was getting older. My energies were not what it used to be. So I am delighted to say that even though I finished as music director, I go back every year for 2 or 3 weeks. So just like here in Nashville, I look forward to returning as a regular guest conductor. So these are places that are very close to my heart.
Do you feel like there are things that you've kind of picked up in Nashville or in Poland that have helped you bring a little something new to the other place?
All of it. All of the above, and especially in Nashville, because there were really no written rules. We could really shape and go a little crazy every now and then. And honestly, that was the lesson, that when you come in as music director, you have to make an impact, both musically and institutionally. And you should not be afraid to make mistakes. And trust me, at the beginning, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, you come in and, you can push the envelope, but you may push it too far. And only experience will teach these things to you. So obviously, when I arrived here, I was a conductor in my 30s. Now I'm a conductor in my 50s. So life has a way of teaching, the most important part is that you learn those lessons. So for me, it's not that the creativity ends. Actually, it becomes even bigger. I have even more ideas now than I ever did in my entire life. And for me, it's just applying them, but always making sure that there is buy-in from the entire institution, not only the musicians, but the audience, the staff, the artistic members, everybody that feels that we're in the same boat. And in the end, it's about servicing the community. And trust me, what works in Wrocław, Poland, doesn't work in Nashville. We're very unique individual cities, and we have to recognize that. And in the end, that is the biggest job. You have to tailor-make everything that you do in the orchestra, like the Nashville Symphony, to the realities of Nashville in 2025. And as you know, over the last several years, Nashville has been changing a lot. The changes that I have seen since I arrived here, just looking the architecture around the hall, is absolutely remarkable. So we have to recognize that and make sure that we remain relevant in the realities that is Nashville and continues to be. And that is one of the biggest questions that I think the next music director is going to have to deal with. How does Nashville remain relevant in a city that celebrates music in all of its forms, but at the same time, there's a great degree of offerings? So what do we do to keep it, unique and special? And it's exciting, and I'm personally looking forward to seeing the next chapter of this great orchestra.
Well, when we come back, we will continue with Giancarlo Guerrero, whose tenure as music director of the Nashville Symphony ends at the conclusion of the season this weekend. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Nobody Trashes Tennessee, the state of Tennessee's official litter prevention campaign, managed by TDOT. Details on how to be part of the solution to end littering at NobodyTrashesTennessee.com. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at MusicCityPrep.org.
I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Nashville. Giancarlo Guerrero's first season as music director of the Nashville Symphony was 2009-2010. For 16 years, he led the group through many good times, including 11 world premieres and 15 recordings of American music, including works by Michael Daughtry, Jennifer Higdon, Terry Riley, Richard Danielpour, John Adams, just to name a few. He's also led through difficult times, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Director Guerrero is with me or I should say I'm with him in his office at the Schermerhorn Symphony Center to share details about his extraordinary tenure at the Nashville Symphony. Once again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The Guerrero era of the Nashville Symphony Orchestra includes a major step into being a recording orchestra. The NSO has 27 Grammy nominations through the years, 14 wins. I know there were a couple of recordings before you came here, but it was barely started up. How did that get started? And tell me about the decision to record almost entirely new music.
Well, the new hall had a lot to do with it. The fact that it's acoustically an incredibly perfect space to make music. So we could record live concerts. Also, the fact that the orchestra had so quickly risen to a great artistic level that basically our concerts became live recordings. So those two things came together for me to be able to kind of spread our message beyond the Nashville, city limits. And I've always thought, even before I got here, that Nashville, even though it's known as Music City, is really American Music City. Everything that you see around here is basically American music genres. We, of course, people talk about country, but that's such a small part of it, and you know it, and I know it. But we have all the jingles, all the bluegrass. We have rock and roll. We have movie scores. We have now video game music that is being recorded here. So all of this is real American creation. So there was a part of me that always felt that we should do it in our genre, which is American classical music. And honestly, I didn't see the value in the Nashville Symphony, like recording Beethoven or Mozart or Mahler, because there's a million, gazillion, trillion recordings of that. It's not that we didn't have anything new to say, but we would have gotten lost in the middle of those. So what are we going to do to really capture the attention and also not only champion, living composers, but at the same time kind of bring attention to these new voices? And guess what? It actually ended up working because all of a sudden, everybody wanted to get our recordings because we were the only ones doing this. And of course, that brought the Grammys and all the other awards that we are so proud of. So all of these things to me were kind of a reflection of what Nashville is all about. It's American Music City. We're doing American classical composers. Maybe because I was a former percussionist, new music comes natural to me. And I always like to remember audiences that, all music was new. Beethoven was new. Brahms was new. And as everything, new stuff tends to, at first, be difficult to assimilate. But it is our duty as artists to make sure that not only do we look to the past, but we look to the present and to the future. So that to me was absolutely imperative that we left our mark. And now I'm very proud of this legacy of recordings, of commissions, of pieces that, by the way, would not have been possible without the support of our audiences. And how many people over the last 16 years are able to say, I was there. They're going to be able to say when those Grammy Award-winning recordings, I was there at that performance. And their great-great-great-great-great-grandsons will say, my great-great-great-grandmother was there. Just the way that somebody in Vienna says, my great-great-grandmother was when Beethoven premiered his pieces in the 1800s. It's exactly the same thing. So there is something to be very, very proud. And I think Nashville has taken great degree of ownership because of that. And I think our audiences feel very, very, very excited about the fact that this was taking place. This historical event is a reflection of what was happening in Nashville in the early part of the 2000s. And that, I think, is something that when we look back, there's probably going to be studies of it. What was happening that the community was going along with it? And let me tell you, not all, like it happens, not all world premieres are successful. Come on, not all Beethoven pieces, not all Mozart pieces were as successful. I mean, that's just how it is. But my job as music director, I really felt, was also to challenge our audience. Not only to give them what they thought was new and recognizable, but at the same time, combine it with the stuff that is happening today, the music that is being written as of today with great composers that we're all coming to Nashville, by the way. We're participating not only in our pre-concert lectures and being on stage, but at the same time going out into the community and really being embraced by the city of Nashville. So there is so much to feel proud of in that regard. And that legacy of not only great recordings, but all of the Grammy Awards, is something that I will look back with a great degree of happiness and joy.
So, I mean, you have these new pieces, these pieces that need to be recorded that you obviously know are going to end up on the season. How do you then fill it out? Where do you start when you're programming a season?
Well, a lot of it is that I have, because of what we do with the Nashville Symphony, that we've become kind of the American repertoire recording orchestra. All of the composers are constantly writing to me. So I'm basically on everybody's Rolodex. I mean, even people know what those are, or quick dials.
Yeah, you're on your contact list.
They kept me, they kept me up to date of like projects that they were doing with other orchestras. There's a commission opportunity, or maybe a soloist that was commissioning something new, a cello concerto or a piano concerto. So I was kind of getting inundated. And in the end, it was what was relevant to us, whether it was the subject matter, whether it was actually a composer that I really loved and I was looking for that one chance to do something with them. And then how do you make sure that piece doesn't get lost just because, we want to get very cute with the programming and want to do something that, nobody's ever heard of. So I always try to put these new pieces with some of the war horses, because you know what, in my own experience, when you put a new work next to a Shostakovich symphony, the Shostakovich Symphony has a chance to sound new again. And I really believe that, because when you come to a concert, it's not like when you're hearing at home. Here, you come to a concert, it's a journey. You're hearing all pieces through kind of a prism. When you hear the first piece, the second piece that you hear is going to go you're going to react based on what you heard the first piece, and then the third piece, and so forth.
So you were very tuned to your ears.
Correct. So all of these things to me are very important, that when we present them, we try to present them in the best light possible, that the most amount of audiences can have access to them. But the other reason for the recording, which to me is important, is that back in the day, if there was a new piece that came out and people were talking about, even before social media, that there was some new, exciting new piece out of the LA Philharmonic, if you wanted to get a recording, you actually had to go through the publisher and sign some sort of documents to get an archival recording. Was impossible. The fact that we were recording this stuff meant that other conductors, other orchestras would have access immediately to it. And they would actually program it. And how does a piece become a warhorse? By playing it. The more you play the piece, the more it becomes, part of the standard repertoire. And I am so proud of the fact that most of these pieces now are being played not only in the United States, but all over the world.
Do you have any memories of finding out that a particular piece was getting those other performances that especially thrilled you?
It actually happened before we even play the piece, just because either the subject matter, and I'll give you an example. 2020, of course, was the centennial of women's suffrage. Big deal. There was a great degree of excitement about how we were going to celebrate and commemorate that very meaningful event. And of course, the pandemic got in the middle of that. And this piece was written by Julia Wolfe, who wrote this piece called Her Story, based on writings by Abigail Adams and many different writers about how finally we came to women's suffrage in 1920, and the fact that Nashville, here in Tennessee, was the last state that got us over the 3/5 to get us into an amendment. So it was here at the Hermitage Hotel that this happened. So we were the lead commissioner. And when we mentioned the fact that we were going to commission this work from Julia Wolfe, 6 other orchestras immediately jumped in and said, we want to be a part of it. San Francisco Symphony, Chicago Symphony, LA Philharmonic, all of these other ensembles. And of course, we were the lead and we were the one that recorded it. And I myself did actually the performance in some of those other orchestras as well. So that's an example of how the piece, even before it was played, the subject matter and the composer generated enough excitement that, even before the piece was premiered, we already had at least 10 performances lined up all over the world.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Nina Cardona. You came to Nashville with the goal of performing every Mahler symphony here. I remember you telling me that. I remember you telling me that you were so proud that we were getting to the point where we were singing the last one, performing the last one in the cycle, and then you started playing them again. And your farewell is a huge Mahler symphony. What is it about Mahler?
Gustav Mahler has been close to my heart, both as a percussion player and now as a conductor and as a listener. I adore going to performances. There's something about a composer that writes, it's an autobiography. Every piece is an autobiography of his very, very tragic life. Even though he had incredible successes as music director of the Vienna State Opera and the great opera houses, including the Metropolitan Opera in New York, this was a man that was an expert also, unfortunately, at tragedies. And you hear that in the music. And I think there's always been a connection with audience members that they can immediately connect with not only the joys, but all of the challenges that they have with their own challenges. The thing is that Mahler was really an expert at it, and the stuff that he went through, I mean, in his very short lifetime, and he died at age 50, is truly remarkable. And when you hear the music, I feel that there is a connection, and a human connection with the composer, with the messages he's trying to say. And because the music is so incredibly challenging for the orchestra, it requires a virtuoso orchestra. There's no way around it. It is tailor-made for the Nashville Symphony, an orchestra that truly is a virtuoso orchestra, player by player. And the fact that we also, have an incredible, fabulous choir that has also been one of my greatest achievements in Nashville, has been how we have developed the choir into this absolutely fantastic world-class ensemble, even though it's all volunteer, by the way, to this day. And when I decided to do the Mahler 8 for my farewell, was very simple. It's just I could not go out without the choir. I not only needed the musicians there, I needed the choir members as well. And on top of it, the children's choir from Vanderbilt, which have been a part of many of my seasons in Carmina Burana and the Britain's War Requiem, and the last time we did Mahler 8, which was maybe 12 years ago.
Well, you know from that you can do it in Nashville.
Absolutely. And we have the hall.
You can't do it everywhere.
That, I will tell you, there are concert halls that would love to have the opportunity. So the fact that we've done this twice during my tenure, I think speaks very highly of the possibilities here.
And, the hall and the personnel.
Absolutely.
It's a big undertaking.
Absolutely. So tonight, for example, I mean, I'm having a rehearsal with piano and the choir. And but honestly, when I decided, what's going to be my final concert as music director of this orchestra, that piece just fit, just kind of checked all the boxes. And especially the fact that I was going to get to celebrate my last concert with not only my colleagues in the orchestra, but my colleagues in the choir as well.
Well, and that answers, just so you know, a member of our staff is a member of the choir, and he had wanted to know how you enjoyed your relationship with the symphony chorus. Oh, your face is saying things I wish people could see. Yeah, I mean, but you said it too.
But you know what? We've done 3 recordings with them, so that tells you of how I think of them. That they deserve to be on our Grammy Award-winning recordings with the orchestra, even though they are, and I quote, volunteer choir. They're not volunteer. I mean, they're absolutely world-class, fantastic, professional, disciplined. How many times I have seen those first moments when they come in a particular moment, and I see the whole orchestra take a deep breath and turn around and say, wow, those are special. And it's a reflection of Nashville, because these are people that are part of the community. So the choir to me has been really that icing on the cake. When I look forward to my future as, being a lot of guest conductor, being a guest conductor for many opportunities, as a music director, comes with perks that you get to choose your repertoire and all that. As a guest conductor, not so much. And I know that I'm not going to have the freedoms that I've had in Nashville when it comes to programming choral music, because pretty much I've done everything that I've wanted to do and more. That to me has been, I would say, on top of everything, really the icing on the cake. Having an incredibly fantastic choir that has allowed me to do all this, and at the same time, not only perform, but record as well. So a lot to be proud, and none of this, again, is possible without their very, very hard work. So I am so excited and so happy that they are part of this final concert, this final celebration.
You mentioned that special gift that you have as a music director of being able to program what you want to play. I know you've programmed some of your very favorite music over the years. I know you've talked about Don Quixote being a favorite. I'm being so pleased to be able to perform that. How does it feel to bring your favorites, things that are so close to your heart, to the Nashville audience?
Well, it's a reflection of who I am. I think over this entire time that I have been in Nashville, I think the audiences, especially those that have been coming to my concerts for so many years, have gotten a very good snapshot of who I am, not only as a musician, but as a person. You know that for the last 16 years, I've done every pre-concert lecture before every concert, which means I've gotten very close to our audiences. And for a while there, we also did post-concert discussions. And so I really spent a lot of time talking directly to the audience and telling them why it is that I was programming these things. It's not that, it's just because I like it, it's my favorite. No, I mean, that's not how it works. I mean, there is not a formula, but there is a train of thought of how you try to make a season balanced, interesting, marketable, all of these things, all of the above, that you have to take into consideration. The one aspect that has allowed all that is the flexibility of not only having a great orchestra that I have never once ever had to say, well, but that may be too difficult. Oh, they can't do that ever. That's not even been part of the thought process. And on top of that, a concert hall that can do it. And by the way, I say that also with the choir. I mean, I have never had any discussions. I remember we were going to record the John Harbison Requiem, which was premiered by the Boston Symphony, and I knew that the piece was never played again after the premiere because it was nearly impossible for the choir. And that's what the choir director told me at the time, that it was such a challenge that even a professional choir would have struggled with it. So they said, most choirs in America, like Nashville, are volunteer. That didn't stop us. We programmed it, we played it, we recorded it, and we were nominated for a Grammy. So when you have that type of freedom, really you can program anything that is in your heart. And in the end, when I look back at all the seasons and all the different music that I played, it's a reflection of who I am. And when you see what the guest conductors did, it also tells you the stuff that maybe I had not a lot of interest for, but I did think that Nashville still deserved to be exposed to it.
It's time for another break. But when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Giancarlo Guerrero, who steps down as music director at the conclusion of this season, which ends this weekend. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Nashville. Stay with us. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Nashville. This weekend's performance of Mahler's Symphony of 1,000 will be Giancarlo Guerrero's finale as the Nashville Symphony's conductor and music director. Throughout his tenure, Director Guerrero has been particularly engaged with conducting training orchestras. And during his time here, the Symphony launched a program called Accelerando that mentors promising young musicians from demographic groups that aren't well represented in the ranks of orchestra players. Again, thank you so much for joining us. What's the value for you of working with young musicians?
Well, it is the audiences of tomorrow. We have to start getting them exposed and training them now so they will become, the music lovers of tomorrow. How many people I see nowadays in our audiences that say, well, I come to concerts because when I was a child, I played trumpet in marching band, or my grandmother used to drag me to concerts, or what have you. Somebody has to expose you to these things. And I find it absolutely imperative, especially as music schools are, as public schools are cutting music programs and arts, which is a crime. I mean, there's no other way. I mean, it's complete idiocy to do this. We have to step in as an orchestra to kind of fill in the blanks with our youth concerts and our programs like Accelerando, and the fact that, as you mentioned, underrepresented communities into classical music. Well, I am an underrepresented community. I mean, I don't know how many people would say that Nicaragua and Costa Rica, where I grew up, are meccas of classical music, and yet here I am, just because I got exposed to it. So in many ways, I use myself as an example of, what can happen when you get exposed. And nowadays, it's basically, we've come a long way, definitely. I mean, now the idea of seeing female conductors or African-American composers, or even within the orchestra, is becoming more common. We have a long way to go, but just like there were no female musicians 50 years ago. And look now, they're pretty much a majority everywhere. It takes time. We have to start training them from the conservatories, from the school, giving them an instrument. So when the opportunities arise later in the year, there's going to be more people applying for those jobs. So we're going to get there, but slowly but surely. So programs like Accelerando, I think, have a big impact on this type of things. But music education, to me, is the most important part, probably, of what an orchestra needs to do. And I don't only mean young children; I also mean adults. Because when we perform, we're trying to expose people to something new, and we want to make them understand how they can appreciate it in the best way possible. That's why I do pre-concert lectures. It's a huge part of it. So make it accessible, make it fun, make it, for some reason, even when I watch sitcoms and they talk about opera, it's like, they make fun of it. But I promise you, none of those people have ever been to an opera. So if you ever went, you probably would change your mind that, this is definitely for me. And just like a symphony concert or a string quartet performance would be for you as well. You just have to make yourself go, and we have to make sure that it is accessible to you from the beginning, that it's not scary. So building a new concert hall is fantastic, but we have to make sure that people feel welcome there, regardless of what you do.
In some ways, too, during your tenure here, the Nashville Symphony has taken some big steps to making composing classical music in a way more accessible to some musicians from other genres who've come in and written concertos that had their premieres here with the orchestra. Ben Folds' concerto, Victor Wooten's bass. That was an amazing night of music. What has that experience been like for you to work with these cross-genre partnerships?
Well, it's unique to Nashville. I mean, there is music royalty here in Nashville, anywhere you look, of every genre. And one of the great joys that I've had being here is I've gotten to know many of them. I have become good friends with them. We hang out. Nothing better than hanging out with amazing musicians from across, people that do what they do so incredibly well. And honestly, for me, it was always like, how can I find excuses to make music with them? And that's where a lot of these projects came. Not only, you mentioned Ben Folds and Victor Wooten and Edgar Meyer and Bela Fleck. I mean, the first ever banjo concerto. I mean, we commissioned it. But these are all Nashville made, Nashville created. And a lot of these ideas came just because we were having a drink together or we were having dinner together. That's the magic of Nashville, and it doesn't happen anywhere else. So all of these things is one more snapshot of what the city is about. That for me, it was not only about celebrating these incredible musicians, but at the same time, I need an excuse to hang out with them. So here you go.
Has anything surprised you about what's come out of this collaboration?
Not really. I mean, one thing that I knew for sure that it was going to be pretty much, rock and roll, that anything that we did was going to be great for the audiences and for the players. And how many times we watch any of these performers doing what they do best and being on stage, and they inspire us. And in some cases, I will tell you, somebody like, Ben Folds or Bela Fleck, or even Kip Winger, who we recently did, a violin concerto and a symphony. I mean, somebody that, we know as the bass rocker of a heavy metal band. Who knew that they could write for orchestra and write really well? That they could have the imagination to compose an entire symphony. You have to take your hat off when you witness stuff like that, because then you realize, these are great musicians across the board. It doesn't matter that, they ended up paying the bills by playing the bass or playing the banjo or playing the electric bass. No, these are great performers, and only in a town like Nashville can we do these types of collaborations, and nobody blinks an eye.
And those have all, of course, been world premieres. But beyond that, you've conducted quite a few world premieres, commissions that have happened for the orchestra. How does that experience, bringing brand new music that nobody has ever heard, every single person in the audience, this is going to be their very first experience. How does that feel as a conductor?
It's like giving birth to a new creature almost. And I mean, as exciting as it is for me when you have that first rehearsal, imagine what it's like for the composer when this has only been kind of sounds in their heads and imagination. And it's actually that first rehearsal, that day when you show up, that I promise you, I don't know of any composer, I don't care how experienced and well-known they are, they're freaking out because they don't know how it's going to come out. The one thing that they do have here in Nashville, and I credit the players, is these guys are going to come in and going to play exactly what they wrote. And at the highest level possible. And whether it works or not, it's not up to us. And it has been remarkable to see pretty much in the first 3-4 minutes of any new piece that we're playing that you can sense in the body language of the orchestra kind of going, you know what, this is going to be really great. And in every turn around, every measure, that becomes more and more confirmed, whether it's a symphony piece or whether it's a concerto. And then comes the fun part over the next couple of days, revising it. Composer coming in and, I want to change something. And having a orchestra that is so flexible that they're ready to adjust at a heart's minute. We even had one particular case, a composer that actually had a printer in the hall. And as we were playing, he was actually printing new parts and changing things. And I promise you, any other orchestra would have rioted long before. It's like, oh, this is what I practice. But this orchestra, I guess because they do so much jingles and so much studio recording, then you have to do these things in 30 minutes, 1 hour. I mean, it's a
and I've
pressure
heard
cooker.
that's why they like to do the video games here, is because they get it so fast.
They're used to it. They're used to it. These people, they can read anything under the sun. From the very first day, I always say our first rehearsals sound like most other people's concerts. I'm very proud of that. And for composers, you know what? Every now and then, I myself, every now and then, go like, oh, another change. But you know what? That's what we're there to do. We're there to champion a new piece, to give it life, and in most cases, record it. Of course, the composer is absolutely within his or her rights to make adjustments. We're happy to do them and find the final greatest product. And, well, the Grammys speak for themselves.
Now, every season, of course, also includes visiting soloists who perform with the orchestra. Do you feel the Nashville Symphony's ability to draw the performers you most want to play with has just grown over the years?
Look at the seasons themselves. I mean, Yo-Yo Ma, Itzhak Perlman, Gil Shaham, Johannes Moser, Emmanuel Ax. We have no trouble attracting them at all. And a big part of it is the orchestra. A huge part of it is the hall. And another huge part is the audience. They want to play for a sophisticated, knowledgeable audience. They know that when they come here, they're going to be celebrated. So the next music director that comes in is going to have a wonderful time being able to call upon the greatest artists all over the world to come to Nashville. Because I promise you, when the Nashville Symphony calls any of their managers, they pick up the phone. And I am delighted of that, because over the years, many of these artists have built relationships here. And there's nothing more beautiful than when they arrive and they know our players individually. And that tells you that, there is a close relationship, that, they come here once every year or once every other year. They look forward to being here and being part of the community. And of course, they all want me to take them to the honky tonks and all that. And I'm more than happy to do that. So we offer them a unique experience that they will not going to get anywhere else.
What would you tell the orchestra's next director about this ensemble and about these musicians and about what it is to be here?
You can do anything you want musically. There's no limits. And call me if you need anything. I always feel as a music director, one of my main duties is going to be to step away. It's going to be their ensemble. And I'm going to be watching from the sides with a lot of great interest, but it's no longer my responsibility. And I'm there to, provide a little bit of history, background, if ever necessary. And of course, a few years down the line, once that person has established, their foot with the orchestra, of course, I will keep coming back many, many times. I have way too much love for this institution, for this city, for me just to cut completely. I know, speak for my family as well, that no, we look forward to coming back to Nashville many, many times in the future, whether for me to conduct or whether just to come visit. Too many friends, too many people that we love. And for me, this is not really a goodbye. It's just like, we'll see you later.
What are you going to miss about being in Nashville so much?
Honestly, coming to work in this hall every day. And I've said this before, for me, when I go to other concert halls in other cities, it's usually a step down. The perks that I have here when it comes to this incredible, beautiful concert hall with this great orchestra in this community, that has been probably the thing that I have cherished the most. And I know that that's going to require an adjustment on my part. The idea to get up in the morning and not get on I-65, which, okay, is not going to be, I'm not going to miss that so much. But, come to this hall and enter the doors of this beautiful place and make music on a daily basis here. I will definitely miss this wonderful place, because it really is an amazing space to celebrate and make music in the highest level possible. And I was so proud to have been a big part of the history of this place. And I look forward to coming back.
What is next for you?
So I am now taking over as music director in the Sarasota Orchestra in Florida, which is in the process of building a new hall. Sound familiar?
Wow.
I get to do it. I get to do it all over again. I can't help myself. And I am starting this summer as music director of the Grand Park Music Festival in Chicago, which to me is incredibly exciting. It's 10 weeks, in Millennium Park, open and free to the public, which is very important, which means that all of our performances get at least 8,000 people. And if we do something big and the weather is good, we get 40,000 people. So it's a great opportunity in one of the great musical cities in the world, Chicago. to make music for 10 weeks out of the summer and, connect with this great orchestra, which, by the way, has also a professional choir. So I'm very excited about that, too.
Well, I wish you the very best in Chicago and Sarasota and wherever music takes you around the world. Thank you so much for your years here in Nashville and sharing the music here with us at the Nashville Symphony. Giancarlo Guerrero, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in this hour. I want to thank our guest, Nashville Symphony Orchestra conductor and music director Giancarlo Guerrero, whose tenure does conclude this weekend. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini, myself, and Char Daston. It was directed by Mary Mancini. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to the staff of the Nashville Symphony. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. The conversation doesn't end here. You can comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and X at This Is Nashville. I'm Nina Cardona. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.